Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Maddie and today I'm going to be talking you through my second trimester with my first baby. So if you haven't seen my first trimester video, I will link it down below. This is pretty much a continuation of that. I'm currently 29 weeks pregnant and this is the bump update. So it's getting very big. And online it's a little bit of a grey area as to when the first trimester ends and when the second trimester begins and when the second trimester ends. So I don't know if this is going to be correct, but for this video I'm going to start from the start of 15 weeks and go up to 28 weeks. And I also covered my 13 and 14 weeks in my first trimester video, so if you wanted to see those particular weeks for the second trimester, you can go back and watch those. So actually the day before my week 15 started, I was driving in the car to get some Christmas food, and in the car ride I started to feel these little like taps, like little kicks pushing outward on my stomach, and it was so sweet. And like I think that was the first real time that I actually felt him kicking. And I don't know what it is about the car, maybe it's the motion of the car, but ever since then I've noticed that he really loves to kick in the car. It was a really sweet moment and very cute. This is week 15, and if you see me looking down at my phone, it's because I've written a whole bunch of notes in my phone so that I can remember week by week what was going on. So week 15 I was still quite nauseous and I did vomit during this week again, which is unfortunate. I also noticed that when I blew my nose I got a slightly bloody nose. I've never had a true blood nose before, but it was just like a little bit of blood. I also wrote that I started to feel little kicks this week. It's a strange feeling, like someone pressing outward from deep inside of you. And I don't know if that describes it properly, but it is really hard to describe. I actually really liked the feeling of feeling him move and kick. Like it's just quite comforting and it's just such a strange sensation. And it's also really exciting when someone gets to feel him kick, and it's definitely hard to like get them to feel him kick at the right time because he does it a lot, but it's very sporadic. So I'll be like, oh, he's kicking, but then he'll like stop for a minute, and you know, people get bored after a minute and then like they take their hand away and then he's kicking again. So yeah, like it's really sweet and it's really fun when you can capture those moments with other people. Also this week, because it was around Christmas time, I had a lot of social events and I was starting to get very tired after them. I also mentioned in my last video that my mental health was starting to go down a little bit. Unfortunately, it did keep going down. So yeah, I was a bit more sad this week. I've come out of that a bit now. I think it was a little bit hormonal, but I also think it was situational. Okay, now we're on to week 16. So I wrote that in the weekend of Christmas, I started to feel a lot more movement, and it was pretty much happening daily now. So every night when I would lie down, he would start like wriggling and kicking, and he was very active at night, and also first thing in the morning, that's when I felt him the most. I also noticed that my nails had gotten a lot stronger and had grown a lot more than I have ever had in my life, pretty much. Normally my nails break. Suddenly like I had these really long nails. It was really cool. I quite liked that side effect. And I'm not sure if it was from the pregnancy or the pregnancy supplements I was taking. I also wrote that my nausea seemed slightly better this week. I was able to eat some more dinner, but I still got some stomach acid if what I ate didn't agree with me. And like I said in my first trimester video, pregnancy seemed to make me have like an entirely new digestive system. Like suddenly foods that I really liked and could tolerate, I couldn't really tolerate anymore. So it was kind of weird balancing like what food would I be able to tolerate to eat tonight, or would my stomach pretty much reject and I would get a lot of stomach acid or feel very nauseous. This week I still got pretty tired on some days. I also wrote that on the 29th I was lying on my back and I felt him kicking, so I put my hand over my tummy and my fingers actually moved when he kicked. So his little kicks were getting stronger and it was very exciting, and you could actually feel them from the outside now. I was like, oh my god, Ryan might be able to feel him kick now, and I got really excited. I was pretty much on baby kicking watch, and I would just like wait until he was kicking and try and get Ryan's hand on him and see if he could feel him. My boobs also got more itchy again this week, and my stomach. I think it was just the skin stretching and growing. I also noticed that my belly started to pop this week. So far I've just sort of felt like I looked bloated mostly, and not really that my stomach had popped. It just kind of looked like my normal stomach, just a little bit more bloated. But this week I really felt like it started to actually pop out more and look more like a pregnant belly, but just obviously smaller than when people are at the end of their pregnancy, obviously. And something else really exciting was that I put on 2 kilos this week, and this was a big deal because of how nauseous I was during the first trimester and into the second trimester. Like even during week 16 I was still quite nauseous, but I was starting to finally get more food down during the day because I was definitely more nauseous towards the nighttime, and with my symptoms starting to ease I could then catch up my food intake during the day and finally put on some more weight for the little baby. Okay, now on to week 17. So in week 17 I noticed that sometimes when I had to pee my bladder hurt a little bit. And I don't know if you've watched my adenomyosis video, I talked about it a little bit in my first trimester video as well, but basically I've had a bit of cramping during this whole pregnancy, and I think my adenomyosis has contributed to that. And I'm not sure why my bladder kind of hurt when I peed, but I was also contributing that to the adenomyosis. Obviously I don't know for sure, but that's just my hunch. My nausea was also still there again, but still slightly getting better, which I was grateful for. I was also still very tired and still had a lot of social outings during this week, but I felt like I was handling them a little bit better than before and wasn't as tired as the previous week. And then something very exciting, I wrote on the 6th of January, Ryan felt him kick. I put my hand on my tummy and he kicked, so I quickly got Ryan to put his hand on my tummy and he started doing little kicks, but Ryan couldn't feel them. I was like, did you feel that? And Ryan was like, no. And then just as Ryan said that, he did a massive kick right into the palm of Ryan's hand, and we were both super excited, and yeah, it was just such a special like bonding moment. Okay, now on to week 18. So my nausea started to get a lot better this week and I was finally starting to come out of it, but it was just still triggered when I ate certain foods, in particular oily foods. So I pretty much had the nausea for 3 months all up, which sucked. Do not recommend. Like I was saying before, with the sadness I was feeling, like you can pretty much understand why, like including life circumstances, why I would be feeling sad at this point after being sick for 3 months with nausea, and like pretty bad nausea at the start, and definitely easing up towards the end, but still there so consistently day in day out. Now that my nausea was clearing up too, I also became more hungry. I also noticed that my nipples were getting darker and my stomach was still starting to pop out more and more, which was very exciting. Okay, now on to week 19. So I wrote that I started to notice some slight cramps again, very slight, like a 1 out of 10 sort of pain feeling, and not really even painful, more just uncomfortable. I would feel them more when I was a little bit more bloated. My mood started to feel a bit better, and it was because we went away on holidays to Phillip Island, so it was really nice to just relax, rest and recharge. Also during pregnancy, your skin is much more sensitive to the sun, and I started to notice that I was getting like a lot more freckles on my nose and sort of cheeks. And once again, my appetite was increasing a lot more this week, and I also noticed my belly increasing in size. So the little boy was eating his fill and growing nicely. Now on to week 20. So in week 20 I wrote, parents felt him kick for the first time on day 1 of week 20. He was super active. That was a very special moment. I like lay down on the couch and I had my parents put their hands on my stomach and he was just like kicking around and moving in there, and it was really cool to have them feel him for the first time. I also wrote that he's continued to be more active and kick more this week, bigger kicks too, and I can feel him from the top of my belly now. Only used to be the lower part and sometimes the sides. During this week too, I noticed certain smells were still like really grossing me out and disgusting me. We went around for like a family barbecue and everyone was cooking meat, and just the smell of the sausages and everything really grossed me out. Like I hated it. I also had one kind of scary and weird thing happen to me. So I wrote, on the morning of the 25th, I woke up feeling like I needed to go to the bathroom. Once I was there, I was in a lot of pain and the pain sort of wrapped around my stomach. It lasted a couple of minutes even after I was done peeing. So I think in reflection, what happened was maybe I also had some trapped trapped a wind in my stomach. I talked to my doctor about it later and she wasn't entirely sure what it was either, but because I didn't have any more of those feelings, we did feel like it was trapped wind and nothing else. So during this week we were still away on holidays and we were actually staying with Ryan's family, and I got to have Ryan's mum and sisters feel the baby kick too, which was very exciting. Now on to week 21. So during this week I caught up with one of my friends and she actually got to feel him kick too. Wrote that Jodie got to feel him kick on the 30th of January. We were all sitting around the kitchen table and he started kicking my side, so I grabbed her hand and he kicked her. I can't explain how exciting it is when, like, you know, you're experiencing this little baby kicking your insides, like, you know, randomly on and off throughout the whole day, and it's just such a special moment to share with friends and family and getting them to feel him kick too, because it just sort of makes it all feel so much more real, and it just sort of builds that connection and more of that love between like you and your baby, and also like your baby and their family members, or your baby and your friends. And yeah, like it's just a really special thing. He was also growing a lot and I started to feel like there was a lot less room in my stomach, so I couldn't eat as much food. I got full really quick now. I also wrote that I was a lot more burpy this week. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was because there was less room in my stomach. This week I gained some more weight, which I was really excited about. I had my 21-week scan done and it was really exciting. We got to see his little face. I might include some footage of it now so that you guys can see too, but my ultrasound people did like some 3D shots, and yeah, it was really cool to see like his little features developing. Obviously he still has a long way to go. He doesn't have much fat on him yet at this stage of the pregnancy, but yeah, like I think he looks so cute, and I also felt like he looked a lot like Ryan. Also, I want to say during that ultrasound, I didn't have the best experience. I had a different ultrasound technician, and this one was very enthusiastic with him being either good or bad in her opinion. It was apparently quite wriggly and wouldn't turn around so she could see his face, and she kept calling him bad, and she even said like, "Oh, you little rat tyke," or something. Like, it was just the language she used when describing that he was bad or naughty for not turning around, and I really hated the way she talked about him, and it actually like brought out my mother bear instincts, and I got quite angry and upset after the whole thing. He's just my little baby, like he's not even born yet. How can he be bad? Like, do you know what I mean? And I know like she was probably just doing it to be lighthearted and having a joke. I think maybe she just took the joke a bit too far. Also during that ultrasound she said that his head was up and feet were down, which made a lot of sense to me when she said that, because I was still getting like most of his kicking movements down low rather than up high. Once she said that, I was definitely like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like he definitely loves to chill in that position. Also during this week I noticed that my fingers started to get a lot more swollen, and I started getting really worried that my ring wasn't going to fit on my finger anymore. Now on to week 22. So during this week I started to get slightly more cramps again. It was kind of like at the base of my belly, like down low where I would normally get period cramps, and I noticed that it would happen mainly after we walked the dogs in the late afternoon. So I don't know if it was just like the movement of getting up and walking around like on the concrete, like maybe just that movement and my belly getting bigger sort of made it just more crampy after the walk. It was a little bit concerning, but also I wasn't too concerned because of how much cramping I had in the first trimester, and then it sort of went away, and then I've just had on and off cramping since then. So for me, like I consider that normal in my pregnancy, even though if you're watching this and you're experiencing it, like don't think it's normal. It's not. Like, go talk to your doctor. Throughout my whole pregnancy I have spoken to my doctor constantly whenever I felt any cramping, just so that we know that everything is a-okay. And yeah, like I just contributed it to my adenomyosis and my uterus being maybe a little bit more sensitive than other people's uteruses. We also came back from holidays this week, and I wrote that my emotions started to get a little bit worse again. And then during this week I also started to notice that I could visually see the kicks from my stomach. So Like I would pull my shirt up and like have a look at my belly, and I could actually see like the skin moving from where he was kicking, which was really cool. I also noticed this week that I felt like I didn't have as much BO as normal. Like I don't know if that's a pregnancy symptom or not. I think it could be for some women, but I definitely noticed that I didn't smell nearly as much as I normally do, and I don't smell that much anyway. But like I really felt like any odor that I used to have was significantly reduced. And during this week I was still very gassy and burping a lot. On to week 23. So the first thing I wrote was, during the night I rolled over and arched my back a little, and I felt a sharp pain or pop feeling at the base of my stomach. I think that happened because my abs were probably separating a little bit. So during pregnancy, because your stomach's growing so much, your abs sort of like come apart a little bit. And I think just that motion of like arching my back to stretch put the abs in a bad position, and yeah, it was quite painful for like a few seconds. But then I was all good. But yeah, like I just wanted to note that down because it was such a strange thing to happen. And also during this week my abs felt a lot more uncomfortable, especially at night time when I was more bloated from all the food that I'd eaten throughout the day. So he's still growing nicely. My belly kept getting bigger and his kicks and movements started getting more and more strong. It still like surprises and amazes me like from week to week, like the strength of his kicks and movements. Also during this week I was still a bit sad, so I started doing some more meditation and hypnosis because I found that that has helped me a lot in the past, and I really wanted to really get on top of this sad feeling that I was experiencing, and I really didn't want it to go on for too long. I also spoke to my doctor about it as well, and she organized some help for me to see someone and talk about some things, and that has been helping too. I also noticed this week that under my right rib in particular started to get a bit uncomfortable. I think it was because the baby was growing so much and just pushing upwards, and yeah, that just like made just under this right rib very uncomfortable. Also during my pregnancy I have been doing yoga and a little bit of like cardio exercise, and during this week I started to notice that I felt quite tired after doing my exercise. I also didn't get cramping legs, but it started to feel like, you know that feeling when your legs are about to cramp? Yeah. I started to feel like that feeling a lot more often, like my legs were about to cramp but they wouldn't, and I would just sort of stretch them a little bit and they'd be okay. And something good happened as well. I went to the dentist that week and she said that my teeth were perfect and that she wished all pregnant women would come in with teeth like mine. So that was like a little confidence boost. I remember before I got pregnant I went to the dentist to prepare for pregnancy basically, and just to make sure I didn't need any fillings or anything before getting pregnant. And she gave me pregnancy tips like make sure you're flossing every day, and after vomiting like make sure you rinse your mouth, and you know, don't brush your teeth straight away for 30 minutes, and you know, all those little dentist things, and I took that very seriously. So if you're pregnant too, make sure you're keeping up your oral hygiene, because with pregnancy it's a lot easier to get like bacterial things in your mouth. Keep on top of your flossing if you're pregnant. Now on to week 24. So one strange thing happened this week, and that was I was standing in a car park for a while and I got a sudden pain in the back of my top right thigh. I wondered if it was from the baby kicking my spine somewhere, or like maybe it was just like the pressure of my uterus and standing upright for a long time. But yeah, it was just weird to get like a random pain there. I didn't experience that again, but yeah. I also wrote this week that I felt what I think is my first Braxton Hick. I've continued to have those on and off now. It just sort of feels like your stomach goes really tight for a bit, like your stomach is sucking in on itself. It's not painful, but it's just, yeah, just weird. I also had a little bit more growing pains this week. I had like a sharp feeling again on my abs, like on the right side of my stomach when I moved in a certain way. At night I started to get a lot hotter. The baby is like your own personal hot water bottle that is constantly strapped to your stomach. So like normally when I sleep at night I would sleep with all the covers over me and I would be kind of cold and all curled up, but now I'm wearing like really light pajamas and I sort of like half have the blankets on me. I also noticed that my skin was a lot more freckly this week, obviously due to just like my skin being more sensitive from pregnancy and the sun damage. In Australia, we live under a hole in the ozone layer, so the UV rays are really awful. And I always wear sunscreen every day, but yeah, like I don't think it's enough. I also found that because it's summer here in Australia right now, and during the week that I'm talking about, I was getting a lot more uncomfortable and hot walking around than before. And again, I had more cramping this week, and it was particularly triggered after walking. I started playing this game almost with my baby. Like whenever he kicked, I would rub my stomach where he kicked, and then he would kick back, and it was just this really cute little thing that I try and do with him. I do it in particular because my mum said that when she was pregnant with me, I used to kick out my foot and she would like rub my foot. So like I really wanted to have that special bonding moment with my son. And just to round out the week, I also noticed that I had put on even more weight. Once my nausea ended in week 18 and I was finally starting to eat more, my body really caught up in giving like my little boy calories and like growing him basically. And I'm glad I did, because I was honestly so worried that I wasn't gaining enough weight. So yeah, like I really did want my baby to fatten up, and I wasn't scared about putting on the weight. I was quite glad to be honest. Now on to week 25. I don't have much written down for week 25. I just wrote I was feeling a little bit more bloated, abs felt tighter and can't stretch as much during exercises, and I still had more cramping. Now on to week 26. So in week 26, I started to get a little bit of that nesting instinct, and I really wanted to clean out everything I owned, but obviously I can't do that all in one day. So I started with my wardrobe, and I cleaned out like half of my wardrobe, and I was really proud of myself. And yeah, like it's still my goal every weekend now to clean out a section of my stuff. I also noticed this week that my legs started to feel a bit swollen when I squatted down. Like there was like a lot of pressure in my legs. During this week, I still had cramping. The last 2 weeks, the cramping was a little bit more intense than normal. But after this week, it did settle down again, which was good. Also, something nice happened during this week that I wrote down was that I started to feel better mentally after resolving some things that had been going on in our lives, and also after prioritizing my mental health more and doing things that made me happy. And one of those things that made me happy was pottery. I think at the very end of January, I started to go to pottery regularly with my friend. I just had such a great time, and like now we go every 2 weeks to every week sometimes, and we've just really enjoyed like doing something new and different and creative. And for me, like it's such a relief mentally to get out and just be, you know, doing something with my hands, getting away from the screen. I've even taken Ryan to do some pottery with me, and it's just such a great little escape. I would also say what has helped my mental health during this time is getting away. If you have the means to go away on a holiday, if you're feeling a little bit, you know, struggling mental health wise, I would say definitely get out of your environment, go away somewhere different, spend some time there. So yeah, like for me, what really helped me get out of that funk was like creative outlets and going places that are new and different. And also hypnosis meditation that I talked about too, that helped a lot as well. Okay, now on to week 27. So during week 27, we flew up to Cairns, and if you guys don't live in Australia or know what Cairns is basically the top of Australia closer to the equator, so it's quite warm and tropical, and it's almost like an Australian Hawaii because they have all the beautiful rainforests and greenery, and it's just so, yeah, just so hot and humid. To be honest, I was quite worried about going up there just because of how little I was coping with the heat down here, and it wasn't even that hot. For some reason, this Australian summer hasn't really hit the 40-degree days that we normally do here in Melbourne. Like I know in other parts of Australia, they have been hitting the 40-degree days, but here in Melbourne, we really haven't hit many 40-degree days or even many hot days at all this summer. And whenever we do, we normally get a thunderstorm and it cools down again pretty quick. So yeah, I was quite worried about going up to Cairns because of how much I was struggling with the heat at this stage of my pregnancy. But I was also really excited to go and just to, like I said before, get out of my environment, go somewhere new, see something different. We had a really good time, and we stayed with one of my friends there. But I did notice some interesting pregnancy things that happened to me while I was away, and one of those was my ankles and legs really swelled up in the heat. So I was right to be worried about that heat. But yeah, like I might insert like a photo of like how big my ankles got. I normally have quite like skinny ankles and you can see like the bones and everything, but my ankles blew up so much you couldn't really see the bone. Yeah, it was so weird. Like I've never seen my ankles look like that before. They were swollen until the day after we got home, and we were only up in Cairns for 3 nights. Baby boy was also growing very quickly during this week and he started popping out a lot more. Another reason I was kind of worried to go to Cairns was because I was worried about catching COVID. Luckily we didn't catch COVID. We wore the N95 masks on the plane, and those things work because on the plane back there was this guy with his group of friends, and all of his friends were sitting in the 3 rows in front of us, and then there was like the aisle, and then like there was this guy that was coughing a lot and he was like next to his friends on the other aisle, and this guy had his mask down around his neck and he didn't have his mask up the whole time, even though he was coughing and spluttering like every literally 5 minutes on this plane trip home. So yeah, I was impressed that the N95 mask worked and we didn't get sick. Then at the end of this week, I did my gestational diabetes test with my hospital. Basically that test is where you have to drink that really sugary glucose drink, and then they take your blood before you have the drink, an hour after you have the drink, and then 2 hours after you have the drink. And this is what I wrote about the test. So I said I did the blood glucose test, which was hard. I went in naive thinking I wouldn't feel sick. I got nauseous enough to not be able to look down at my phone. At the end of the first hour, I kept burping to try and clear the acid building in my throat. Ugh, I remember that. There was just a bunch of acid that kept creeping up my throat from the glucose drink. Like my stomach wasn't handling that amount of sugar, and yeah, it just felt really gross and like I had to like kind of burp to clear it. But doing that made me want to vomit. I almost vomited and I had to stand up to see if I could spit the saliva out of my mouth. I found a water cup and spat into that. Standing up made me feel a lot better, thankfully. During the second hour I felt a bit better, and then after the test I was so tired and sick in my stomach. The tiredness lasted 2 days, as did the sick feeling in my stomach, but not sure if that was solely due to the test or if I ate some bad food. Yeah, with how exhausted I felt after that test, that was honestly the worst part of it for me. I even napped and I never nap. Now on to week 28. So during this week I had some exciting baby movements. So I remember lying on my side and I could feel like his little movements happening, and I like put my hand down to feel, and I could feel like his little head or his little butt or something like rolling around and moving in there. And because up until this point I had just felt like little jabs or kicks or maybe like a little foot here and there. I also wrote that the movements felt stronger, like he was pushing and stretching upwards, and it was the strangest feeling. Also this week I started to notice that I had a bit of pregnancy brain. Like there were definitely some things that I forgot, but one of the key moments that this happened to me with. So I went to order some food for Ryan and I for lunch, and I called up this place and I placed my order, and the lady was like, okay, awesome, that'll be ready in 10:15. And when I heard that, I hung up the phone and I turned to Ryan and I was like, that's so strange. She said it'll be ready at 10:15, but it's like 12:30 right now. And Ryan was like, oh no, like, oh sweetie, like, just have a think about that. And then I was like, oh my God. During this week I also got the results from my gestational diabetes test. I was lucky to have a negative result from that, so I don't have gestational diabetes, but I also had my iron levels counted and my iron stores were fine apparently, but I had low hemoglobin levels. The guy that was telling me these results at the hospital, he was like an older middle-aged man and he had like a male student with him, and he wasn't very kind to me when he told me this information. He was kind of like, oh yeah, and you have low hemoglobin levels and you might feel a bit more tired. And then he turned to his like student and he was like, we might give her an iron transfusion, but we'll probably wait till she's 37 weeks so that if she has an adverse reaction, we can just deliver the baby then and there. And I'm just sitting here like, excuse me? Like, first of all, you're telling me something's wrong, and then you're telling me there's this thing that we can do to fix it, but that I might have a severe reaction, and like then you're just gonna deliver the baby while I'm unconscious or something. Like, excuse me? Like, there was no care or, you know, sympathy. It just really felt like he didn't care that I was there, and I guess he was just more focused on teaching his student. Yeah, like, that wasn't a very nice thing, and after that I was quite upset. But then I spoke to my doctor about it. She had never heard of people having an adverse reaction, and that, yeah, he was quite poor with his delivery of that to me. For now, I'm going to monitor that and see how I go with taking some extra iron tablets and hopefully rising up those hemoglobin levels. Another slightly weird result that I got from that test was that I had low blood sugar. She just said if I ever start to feel a bit tired, like, have a jelly bean or something and then eat something that has more slow release energy, like a sandwich or something. And she also said that makes sense as to why I was so tired after my blood glucose test with the sugary drink, because that sugar drink really spiked my energy and then plummeted it. So with that, that concludes my second trimester. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you want to see more in the future, I'm going to do a third trimester video and more pregnancy content, so subscribe down below if you want to see more. Give this video a like if you liked it, and let me know too if you've ever been pregnant, what was the hardest part of your second trimester. I think for me it was definitely spending that first half of my second trimester with the nausea still. I hope you have a very lovely day today, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!